2017 was a year that gave us something a little unique in cinema history. Two movies about World War II were released separately, but which had overlapping topics. Those movies were Christopher Nolan's masterpiece Dunkirk and Darkest Hour, starring Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. Where Dunkirk covers the evacuation of British troops from France in 1940, Darkest Hour follows Winston Churchill from when he's appointed as Prime Minister to his oversight of the Dunkirk evacuation, through to his famous "We shall fight on the beaches" speech to Parliament. I've had Darkest Hour on my Netflix watch list for quite a while, and noticed that it was due to leave the catalogue on April 17th, so I loaded it up before it disappeared on me. The first thing I'll say is that for a movie that got a lot of awards attention for its makeup effects and for the performance of Oldman looks and sounds nothing like Churchill. Going into this, I had a what moment when we first see him on screen. I was taken aback, if I'm being honest. That aside, this was an interesting look at all the difficulties that were going on politically in Britain and Europe in the early stages of the war. Often we look back from our point in history and the paths taken seem easy to understand and very straightforward. But back then, as all the stuff was happening, they didn't have the benefit of hindsight. I think the movie communicates well the frustrations of power and the political sparring that must go on, and even more so with the war casting a shadow over everything. I actually found the most compelling character to be Elizabeth Layton, who is played by Lily James. If her face and name are familiar, you might have seen her in Baby Driver or the most excellent Yesterday. Elizabeth Layton was Churchill's personal secretary from 1941 to 1945, and in the movie she's kind of like an avatar for the British people. We see her reacting to the various good and bad news that comes across her desk in the form of information and dictation from Churchill, as all these world-changing events were happening every day. I would really like to see a movie that focuses on her and her point of view of all the stuff going on around her. Other than that, it's a fairly stiff and stuffy movie, and a lot of it's shot in dark rooms, and the cinematography is all about shadows, silhouettes, and single sources of light. It is very dialogue heavy and deals with a dark time in history, so while these production decisions make sense to me, it does make everything feel a little bland. Even though this covers an important part of world history, I don't think this will be for everyone. That said, even for me as a history nerd, I didn't find myself pulled into this, mainly because I didn't find Oldman's portrayal of Churchill all that convincing. Oldman is a fantastic actor, but anyone with a passing knowledge of Churchill will know that this was not a great impression of him. I don't quite get what the awards hype was all about. So in summary, I think this is a movie that outside of the awards bubble hoopla is kind of average, and unless you have a really, really strong interest in the subject matter, there's probably not enough here to hold your attention.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender! For without victory, there can be no survival.